I've had to do those. Let's suck. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. How are you guys?
Good.
Everything I got is on.
High 7. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for April 10th, 2025. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the Planning Commission agenda today, there are speaker request forms on the table along the left wall. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the staff seated along that side there. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hall so the meeting is not disrupted. Items 1 through 5 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group today. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision with the exception of the following items. Item 4, 25 PD 007, and item 5, 24 UR 011. The Rapid City Planning Commission's action on these two items is final unless any party appeals that decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 5 that staff would like removed for separate consideration?
No, thank you.
Any items that any planning commissioner would like removed for separate consideration? And are there any items 1 through 5 that any audience member would like removed for separate consideration? The chair would then entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar items 1 through 5 in accordance with staff's recommendations.
Motion to approve items 1 through 5 in accordance with the staff stipulations.
All right, Vince made the motion. Mike Quasney seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6.
Good morning, Mike Dugan with Finance. Today we're going to discuss a new proposed tax increment financing district that would overlay the current Homestead Street Extension District, TIF 83. And the purpose would be for the construction of a new fire station, city park, and potential improvements to Homestead Street, which we'll address further in these slides. This is just a general overview from RapidMap. I just wanted to point out a couple of things about this area. Let's see if I can get the list. This might work a little better. So right here is the hash, kind of cross-hatched in red. That is the current Homestead TID 83 boundary, which this proposed one will overlap. This big area right here in the red cross hatching is the East Anamosa TIF 84. And then over here, cross-hatched in the red, is the brand new TID 92, the Enid Housing Development. So as you can see in this particular area, there is a lot of development that's happened and estimated in the future. The TID 83, which this will overlay, is actually way ahead of projections as far as the development that's happened in this TID, and it's proposed to, or estimated to pay off in 2027. So this is an up-close aerial view of this TID district, of the boundaries. So the current zoning mixture of the medium density residential, office, commercial, and general commercial within those TIF boundaries. Future is mixed use commercial and urban neighborhood. Major street plan, as you can see right here, Homestead Street that was constructed that runs right down the middle of this TID boundary, and that is a collector street. And then right here, Elkvale Road is a principal street. The TID funded cost that this is proposing is a construction of a new fire department substation with office space, a small amount of office space for the Rapid City Police Department, which $7 million would be allocated. Construction of a new city park, there'd be $2 million allocated from this proposed district. I do want to note from the TID 83 amendment that allowed the city to purchase the lots that the construction is going to be, or the development is going to be on. $584,000 was used, allocated to the construction of this new park to be used this year. That was unused funds from the TID 83 that was just reallocated in that amendment. So there's a little over $2.5 million available for that park. And then the improvements I want to touch on along Homestead Street to the intersection of Elkvale Road. And I'll go back. So that would be right here is this area. That would address. So this right here, this area right here, there is an issue with kind of stacking during peak times. With the development and the future development that's happening, you know, it's potentially going to get worse. So there is funds allocated in here to address, you know, if needed, a traffic study, and then if the traffic study was to identify anything, those funds could be used to improvements to that. I do want to note, just want to summarize comments that came from Public Works that removing those funds from this, the reason being that the necessary improvements that would help alleviate that issue right there is more outside of the TIF boundary, which would be Elkvale Road, which would be the South Dakota Department of Transportation authority, and that the South Dakota Department of Transportation is studying this corridor and will have recommendations for future improvements to the Homestead, that intersection there, and then also up here, which would be the intersection of Elkvale and East Anamosa. So those funds are there, potentially not needed at all. So if they're not used, if nothing is needed, this TID will just pay back quicker. They won't be used. So here's a layout of the property up close. So up here, right here, this area, this lot in red, would be the future fire station with office space for a police precinct. Down below, these two lots would be the city park. Then over here, the drainage lot, the developer currently is that the original developer of the TID 83 project. That's just going to be given to the city, and the city will be responsible for maintaining that drainage lot. Detail of the project cost. So the total eligible project cost would be a little over 27 million. That includes the cost to construct the fire station, police precinct, city park, and potential homestead improvements if needed or not. That just won't be used, and it'll just pay back quicker if those improvements aren't needed. Financing costs of just under 17 million. And then the administration fees, the city administration fee, the county administration fee, and the application fee for this request. Amortization, so the underlying TIF is estimated to be paid off in 2027. This TIF would have a estimated repayment of just under 20 years at 19 years. And the city will just self-finance this project at 6 3/4 fixed for this project. Schedule improvements. So with help with the developer, Mr. Estes, Doyle Estes, he had reached out to the property owners where these lots within this development was sold, or who was sold to, about future development in this area. So this is an estimate of what those current developers that own those lots are proposing to be built up in this area. It's proposed to have a lot of growth. So the current estimated base value of this, according to the values the state sent, the most recent values, is the base value, base value would be around 48 million. And if all this growth was to happen by year 20, the assessed value of everything within the boundaries would be just over 185 million. And that's also estimating a low, as we know, over the last probably decade, Rapid City has experienced a lot of growth. The appreciation values have been higher than this 2%. So a conservative would be all these properties, the current and future, would have an annual appreciation of around 2%. The projected increment, tax increment income from the current and future development would be just over 27 million. This, everything within the TID boundaries would generate. So with this being the structure that it is, this TIF will be classified or estimated to be classified as a local district. So that will have an additional levy with everybody within the Rapid City area school district, and also those within the Rapid City School District that are in Meade County, which would be Blackhawk and Somerset, would have an additional levy. So that's estimated in 2027 as the underlying TIF is paying off. This proposed TIF is starting to generate its own increment, and it's going to pay off the principal cost of this. And it's also assuming that another equation in this is the growth of Rapid City as a whole. So it's assuming a 5% increase, which is Rapid has grown, I believe, over this amount over the last decade. But so it's a conservative approach that Rapid will grow by 5%. So that would estimate in 2027, the burden would be, or the additional tax would be about 37 cents per 100,000 of owner-occupied property and 71 cents per $100,000 value of commercial. So stretching out the estimate, assuming that 5% growth, and then the increment growing with all the development that's supposed to happen within these boundaries. So in 10 years, it'd be about $3.10 per 100,000 for owner-occupied and $6.37 per 100,000 of commercial tax value. So the school district's always made whole, so the general and special ed funds will be made whole. Instead of it being a statewide allocation, it will be just the residents of the Rapid City Area School District. The boundary map of who that will affect, the residents, is in purple. That's, as you can see, it does stretch up into Meade County, which would be Blackhawk and Somerset as well. This slide, this is the 2024 annual TIF report that was acknowledged by City Council this year. So the important part, as we approve these and they dissolve year over year, is the city is allowed to do TIF funding up to 10% of its total valuation. Currently, as of year-end 2024, we were at 1.48%, so there's plenty of room for growth. So if you were to take off the 2 in green that did dissolve in 2024, with the 16 active TIDs, if this was to move forward and be approved, that would put us up to 1.55%. And then, as we talked about, was it last week in TIF training, that going forward, we're going to break these out into 2 motions. So the first one would be the resolution to create the tax increment financing district that would set the boundary. Then the second motion would be to adopt the components of the project plan. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
I do have Chip to throw the fire department's perspective out.
Mr. Chair, I have one question on the 1.5 for the intersection road. The fire station that we're looking at building is going to be larger than with the PD portion. Are we flexible with that money if we don't use it on the intersection to reallocate it if the construction cost goes higher than we anticipate?
Yes, that can come through with an amendment.
Thank you.
Yep.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, what property did you add to the former TIF so I can see which?
Yep, absolutely. It would be this one right here.
Okay, that single property there.
That
in the
single
corner.
property, yes.
Okay, I didn't have the map of the other one, so I just wanted to see it where it was. Thank you.
Yep.
Eric Heikus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, simple question first, and then a comment. That Elkvale and Homestead Street, that's a signalized intersection currently?
Currently, yes.
Okay. Second is a comment on the park. It's a great spot for a park. That area is really needing one. How is Parks Department with the maintenance of this facility in the long term? That's a vastly underfunded division of the city. Is this going to be something they can handle as well, or is there discussion as to how that will transition?
So, Finance Director Ainsley and I met with Mr. Bigler and his design staff approximately a month ago. They're actually very excited about this project. They've already started the design process with this, and there's no concerns as far as the maintenance. And actually, it was discussed as possibly, since the drainage lot is right there, as well as the Parks Department helping to maintain that, mowing it down.
Thank you.
Yes.
Quick question for me. Oh, Vicky?
So I just wanted to remind you that we talk all the time about when a development comes forward, the developer is responsible for the infrastructure. And many times we speak of the streets, the utilities, and the drainage. But the other side of that is the infrastructure to provide the amenities for that neighborhood, fire and police protection, and public parks. This is a great example of an amendment to a previous TIF, laying this additional TIF on top of it, where we're using this increment to purchase the land and then also to stand up some structural improvements in order to meet the infrastructure responsibilities that we should be partnering with these developers when we are creating these new neighborhoods. I'm hopeful that we'll see more TIF applications that include these kinds of expenditures to assist the city. Otherwise, without this, down the road, that neighborhood will continue to need these services, and then we will have to stand up these facilities without the aid of a TIF.
I agree with that 100%, Vicky. Mike Quasney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, often when we annexed a big part of this valley, the Rapid Valley area, and we You'll talk to people out there and they'll say, we're not getting any services. So I think this is right down the line where we're showing that we will give services. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Vince?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I see that Pennington County had some concerns about the drainage. Could you address that? Their concerns?
Yeah, if, Todd, would you be able to help Public Works?
Oh, I just deleted you, Todd. You got a request again. There you go.
Actually, sorry. I'm not sure what their concern is with this TIF. I know that they're working on a different TIF in this area to address drainage issues, but I don't think it's directly related to this one.
They did. The comment from one of the Pennington County commissioners was drainage in this area, and it was specifically about this project they had commented on. It didn't go any further into detail. It just said a drainage.
Okay, I haven't seen that comment. I do know as a part of this, we are gonna, the developer is gonna dedicate the regional pond for us as well. So there is a detention pond in the same area for drainage. I'm not sure what that comment was though.
Yeah. Well, they didn't say a lot either. I mean, they said that since they've already had drainage issues on the project to the area east of it on Chet Street and Avenue A rather, so that they wanted to just make sure that it was, but you did talk about the pond and the other issue in that area. So I don't know if that addresses it all either. So no one's from Pennington County here to further stipulate what they're looking for. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Vicki.
there has been a county commissioner that has spoken every time we've had a development project within the 3-mile plating jurisdiction or a TIF that speaks to the concern that whenever we allow additional development, it creates increased drainage issues downstream. And Todd can probably explain this better than me, but when development comes in, we require the developer to capture any additional runoff. The problem is that while they're still releasing those flows at the same volume that they did previously, there's just more and more of it. The water just keeps coming. And so that creates issues downstream. Things that were wet for a shorter period of time are staying wet longer. And that's, I think, something the county wants us to look at more seriously and see what we can do to assist them in that matter.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Eric Hikas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to clean up my comment a little bit here. I have never spoken out against a park. Believe me, I think they're great. We need them. We need them all over town. So this is a great use of those funds. This is a great use. My comment was really directed toward, as we're a growing city and we're growing and adding more parks, we should be growing the Parks Department budget to maintain them as well on a ratio that's comparatively. So just to be clear about that, I'm definitely not speaking against the park. I think the park's great. So thanks.
No, it's a great comment.
Mike Kwasny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, they're talking about the traffic off of right there at that intersection and how tough it's going to be. Is there any consideration, the Anamosa Street crossing over, where are we at down the road? Is there anything talked about as far as extending Anamosa and coming down? It looked like Neal, maybe, or...
So I will defer to Public Works to comment.
Todd, I'm going to call you, but I'm also going to add another question to that. Maybe just explain the Homestead Street cost that potentially will be included in this and why it might be DOT's responsibility. But Mike's question first, Anamosa Street connection.
Sure. So Anamosa Street is on the major street plan to go east of Elkvale. Neal Street and DeGeest are both collector streets. We've had other developers look to develop that property, which would construct Anamosa Street. Currently, there's a lack of water to get there. So the Shepherd Hills on the west side kind of extended water in that direction, but we would need to complete the water main from the end of Shepherd Hills to make it worth any developer developing, because they need the water to do that. So that's kind of the hold up there. As far as Homestead, yeah, the DOT is doing a study, so we don't know what that study is going to recommend yet. Most of the improvements will probably be up and down Elkville, but there will be some improvements on Homestead, so we kind of need to do all of it at the same time. So that's why it may or may not happen in that time frame. We don't really know what the scope of the work is going to be yet.
Mike?
Would the DOT consider the extension of Anamosa as part of their plan? I guess they probably would not do anything until you get a developer involved in that. But
well, I think their study is going to be long term. It's going to look at the possibility of signalization at Anamosa Street, at some point when Anamosa does go to the east as well. And then if that happens, the Homestead signal might be too close. And so what do they do with Homestead?
okay, thank you.
Todd, I'm going to ask you another one because I can't help it. So part of the funds in this potential TIF were potentially a traffic study, but it sounds like the DOT is also doing a study. Do those run parallel but without discussion with each other, or would those two studies be done in tandem?
Yeah, I believe the DOT is just starting. So they're doing more of a corridor study up and down Oakville.
Okay.
It may not include everything as far as the Homestead intersection. I believe it will, and what we would do is work with the DOT. There was a traffic study a number of years ago for Homestead and Oakville, so that might be incorporated into the work as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Vicky? Kip.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a little more clarification on that study. It's called a major investment study, and it's not only looking at Elkville Road, it's looking at the entirety of I-90 through Rapid City, as well as US 16B, which extends all the way from I-90 down to Highway 16. So it's a very large study. It'll take about 2 years to complete. And like Todd said, it is not quite underway yet, but we anticipate it'll get kicked off this year.
Thanks, Kip. Daniel?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to respond to one of the items that Commissioner Hikas brought up. The City Council is well aware of the additional resource needs of the Parks Department, and actually at their last council meeting, they did authorize 2 additional park operators to help with the needs that are needed throughout the community. Those were actually funded through some current contracts that we're able to internalize those services, and so it's no additional cost to the taxpayers. It's a more efficient way to deliver services to the residents, but there will be additional labor that's going to be available to maintain parks. And so you're absolutely right, as the community grows, there's going to be further investment in our parks.
Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question on, I guess, the hierarchy of the DOT study. Is that the recommendations taken up by the city down the road? Because, I mean, with all that development and traffic, how's that process work as far as recommendations on this intersection and this roadway?
Who wants that one?
I'll take a shot at it. So Elkville is actually a state highway, so the final design specific to that intersection, that design will come forward from DOT with collaboration with the city, as they do on all of our intersections that abut state roads that extend through our community. Once we get past that entrance corridor, those intersections, then the city's study and maybe design would collaborate with the states to ensure that there's consistency in how that traffic flow is going to happen.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Pat Roseland?
Thank you, Chair. Director Ansley is right. I think the City Council is keenly aware of what the Parks Department is doing and has been doing over the years with, I wouldn't say limited funds, but they could always use more funding. And hopefully with Vision Fund coming up and also the Rapid City Comprehensive Plan may be helpful in that aspect also. So, the Parks Department is in charge of 1,700 acres or more at this point. And with, they have a huge crew, but not enough to do the job correctly or right. They could always do more, and they're aware of that. But I really feel like the city will be behind the Parks Department as much as possible to make sure that as this project is going on, they'll have a beautiful park out there for those who are living out there. And I just appreciate that the land that the Parks Department will be on, or the Fire Department and the Police Department and the Parks will be on, is part of this whole TIF initiative. And I really feel like that it's a positive plan, and hopefully we'll make sure that there are enough finances for the Parks Department to keep that park up and other parks in the city. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Vicki?
Just to give a shout out, though, to the police and fire department as well. This is an expansion of their services, too, and it's something that we're taking a hard look at. Our community is continuing to grow. That we're having some growing pains. They're great growing pains, though, and standing up these 2 additional stations for that emergency response will probably mean that we'll need additional staffing at these facilities, too. And I think that knowing that we've got a couple council members in the audience today, it's great that we're having this conversation. These amenities are needed in this neighborhood, and as a part of it, there might be some increases for those departments as well in order to provide the services that this area deserves.
All right, Eric? Oh, I didn't turn you on.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Finance Director Ainsley and Alderperson Roseland for those excellent answers. I appreciate that. I'm going to start by being the guinea pig here on this new. I'm going to make a motion to create a district in alignment with stipulations and discussion today as a first motion, first step. Hold on, this is a cheat sheet here. That it meets the intent of the South Dakota Codified Law and the city's tax increment finance policy.
All right, so Eric made the motion to create the district as stated. Karen seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Oh, Vince?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I get one more look at the color map with the different school districts, of the one before that, 2 before that, or that one? So, so will so this is all Rapid City Area School District then, am I correct?
The purple, yes.
Just the purple?
Just the purple.
But some of this is going to overlap into the brown area.
Yes. So there are areas like Meade County, for example, it does stretch out past Pennington County, that those communities that are within the Rapid City Area School District will be assessed that levy as well. So Black Hawk, Somerset, for an example, in Meade County would be assessed that as well.
Okay, yeah, because I understand that the Douglas School District is going to get a federal, is going to get some federal money here to improve their schools out there. But so how does that affect the Rapid City area schools? Do you know?
I don't.
All right, that's okay. I'll look into it. Thank you.
All right, motion on the floor is to approve the creation of the district. Any other comments on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Then there would be discussion of the proposed project plan. I had one more comment. I'm just going to throw it in now before a motion. Usually my typical question on TIFs is essentially, is the city responsible for this? Usually the answer is no, the developer is. This one's the opposite. When I heard discussion of the projections of the revenue coming out of this district over time, I think they're optimistic, and I think there's reason to be optimistic. Being a pessimist at times by nature, is the city ready to build these knowing that the tax increment is not guaranteed? I guess, is the city ready to stand behind funding these improvements in the short term, even if the long-term dollars don't appear? Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that is a very excellent question. Yes, the city does have the financial resources to build these facilities. Using the TIF, we are anticipating that a large portion of that expenditure would come back to the city. In fact, we anticipate that all of it would be returned plus interest. But if there were some sort of significant downgrade in the economy for several years and we did not receive all that, essentially what that would mean is that the city would not receive the interest income that we're anticipating, which would not be ideal and not what we would like. But yes, the city would be able to withstand that.
All right, thank you. So if the commission's ready, maybe a motion on the approval of the project plan?
I'll make a motion on the proposed, that the proposed project plan meets the intent of the South Dakota codified law and the city's tax increment financing policy, then, and we recommend the approval of the resolution, adopt a project plan to the city council.
All right. Vince made the motion. Haven seconded that motion to approve the resolution of the project plan. Any discussion on that motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7.
Thank you. So this is a second proposed new tax increment financing district application that was submitted. So what this development would entail is currently downtown, this particular property where the parking lot is a city-owned parking lot, and that lot does generate parking income for the city. What this development would be is this parking lot, this particular city property would be sold. This development would put up in 2 phases, commercial economic development, which we'll get into here. So this TID district is in the central business district, surrounded by principal streets downtown. So the project details, so the phase 1 will be the construction of a 13,000 square foot 3-story building. The first floor being a new business to the community that will provide new employment opportunities for a tap room and a brew pub. The second floor consists of approximately 4,000 square feet. That would be office space supporting economic development. And then the third floor of this phase 1 would be 3 market rate apartments. Phase 1 would also include approximately 1,800 square feet of patio space and adjacent green space that will connect phase 1 to a second building and parking in phase 2. So the proposed phase 2 development would be a 4 or 5 story mixed use building. First floor would be office space, and the additional 3 to 4 additional floors would be more market rate apartments. Under the phase 2 building would be underground parking. The TIF boundary is a total of just under an acre. The subject site is approximately 0.64 acres. The TIF funded project costs, this is proposed being structured as a grant of $1.4 million, financing costs of just under $1.1 million, and then the city and county administration fees totaling just over $2.5 million. So in compliance with SDCL, the codified law 11-9-15, this can be structured as a grant, pending approval process. Funds can be used to facilitate the construction of the project. One thing I will note that will be in the developer's agreement, the TIF funds will not be used to purchase the lot. So the developer would be responsible for that upfront purchase of that lot using their own funds. This is proposed to be classified as an economic district, so there would be no additional increase to the Rapid City Area School District residents. Total construction costs are estimated at just over $12 million for Phase 1 and Phase 2. And this project would be in conjunction with the Rapid City Innovation District, which is the innovation hub that connects the School of Mines to the downtown core. So this would meet the requirements and the newly approved by City Council TIF policy to be considered infill development. So this does meet 4 out of the 6 requirements. It doesn't extend the existing development plan, makes use of existing downtown infrastructure. It is surrounded by existing development. It is served by existing fire and ambulance service within the standard response time. So this is a layout of the proposed site. Phase 1 is the 3-story mixed-use building, which you can see there in yellow color. They'll also include that green space in Phase 1. I do want to note the parking behind the Phase 1 3-story building, that's not allowed. And the applicant acknowledges this and is working with and will work with community development to address that issue. So that's why the big red X there, that the parking cannot back into the alley. So, and then Phase 2 development is estimated to kick off 2 years from now in the spring in 2027 would be that 4 to 5 story building, mixed-use building with the underground parking. And these are just some renderings. These are just draft. These aren't final on there, but this is giving an idea of what the applicant is proposing. This would be the Phase 1 building and green space. So the projected tax increment income, the proposed TIF requested amount, this is the grant, the interest, and the city administration fees is just over $2.5 million. This project, once fully built out, is anticipated to generate just under $4 million in additional increment. It's a conservative approach because, as you can see, the applicant, year 6, it's totally built out. So the initial base of the 4.4 million is now just under 17 million to generate approximately 231,000 per year. So that would be a conservative approach because it's leaving out, 2 to 3, 4% anticipated appreciation over the years. So this is that amortization schedule. It's estimated a 14-year amortization and payoff in 2039. So the project estimated, the anticipated base valuation, currently as it sits right now with the 2 other properties adjacent to it at just over 4.1 million. And the estimated the year 20 when the TID would naturally dissolve, it's anticipated to dissolve off 5 to 6 years sooner, would be just under $17 million. The sources and uses, so to total construction costs, just under $13 million. The TIF funding, the applicant's equity investment into the project, and then bank financing would be the sources. So this project is anticipated to have approximately a 5% return each year. So the need for TIF funding. So this breaks it out with and without the TIF funding. As you can see the first slide, without TIF funding, the debt load, so on this slide is approximately 10.7 million. That means there's no TIF funding. That increases that monthly payment by approximately $10,000 a month. So this project would be underwater as far as the net annual income without TIF funding. So with TIF funding, the monthly payment drops by approximately $10,000 per month. The net annual income is just under $100,000 with a 5% return. This is the annual tax increment financing districts. So once again, this would be projection or 2025. So with the approval, if the city council was to approve the previous TIF, and if this one was to go forward, planning commission and city council approval, this would move our valuation up on the TIFs to about approximately 1.59%. With that, I'll stand for questions. And I apologize. I do want to note that the applicant, Todd Gagney, is in attendance if you have any questions.
Thank you. Chip?
I never thought I'd be talking about TIFs so much today. Just food for thought and one question, I guess. With this TIF, I think, is this area, are we replacing the water valves for this section? If we are, why wouldn't we, since we have the street tore up, why don't we consider stubbing in some large water lines to these lots? Just food for thought. Just a question, I guess.
Eric Hikas, I've got a speaker request on this. I can go at any time. But, okay. Doris Lowing, if you'd like to make a comment on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee, for hearing us. Doris Lowing, South Dakota Stock Growers. We are the building right next to this project. 2 years ago, we stood here before the City Council with a presentation that this real estate transfer agreement was between the City of Rapid City, Elevate, and 11 Main LLC. I don't hear any of these names being brought up in this. We now have a petitioner, SJOZB, who was just filed with the state of South Dakota on 2/25. So in these meetings that we had, 11 Main LLC approached the city to purchase the parking lot to expand property meld. Do you hear anything about property meld being expanding into this? They proposed to incorporate the project to the home of Wildfire Labs, a technology incubator. Yesterday, they changed their plans to remove the expansion of Wildfire Labs in their proposal. Makes you question, so you guys sold the parking lot because they had gave us a plan. That plan is not being followed. Where's the purchase agreement? I have a copy of a draft agreement. When was that signed? That draft agreement should have been signed in August, which clearly states that they had to purchase the land till January 25th of 2025. What I'm hearing today is that land isn't purchased yet. Am I correct? These are questions that we have, and when you look at TIFs are, we heard the first one, of being for parks and fire departments. This is for personal gain. This has nothing to do with enhancing the innovative district. They have 2 floors of offices. The rest are apartments. That's personal gain. In speaking with our attorney, why are we handing these TIFs out so freely? You guys have taken away our public parking. You've taken away your income by selling this at a discounted rate, not opening it to the public, and now we are faced with having to find parking within our city in front of our building where I'm having to walk at some points in times in January when we thought we weren't going to be able to use our parking lot. We were told to park on the streets. We bought parking passes for that. I was parking a block away to get into my building. I'm paying property taxes. My people, my tenants should be able to have freedom of that. So I just ask you to consider this TIF very carefully, and I would like to see a copy of the purchase agreement, and I want to know why it was not executed as of January 25th and this property has not been bought. Thank you, and I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you. Eric Hikas? Sorry.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll make a few comments on this one. This is getting into some progressive stuff that's aligning us with some larger urban areas. This is more driven toward live-in, work-in, this kind of model. It's really geared toward Gen Z and that sort of thing. It's very attractive to a younger generation, as I understand it. It's sort of a small version of a Google campus, if you will, as I'm getting the vibe from what I'm seeing, in terms of live, work, enjoy, play, all this. So it does provide, in my opinion, as I understand it, housing opportunities, housing alternatives, and also those same housing opportunities and alternatives in our downtown and our core, which is, I think, a good step. So I think it's a good plan. Thank you.
All right, Haven?
I maybe can raise a couple of questions. The parking issue came up, with Block 5 and then this particular property. How is the city compensating for the loss of those parking spots?
Vicki?
Thank you. So that's been a challenge. We have had to reach out to all of those previous permit holders in both the Block 5 parking lot and the Stock Growers parking lot, which is kind of what we've termed the parking lot next to this subject property that we're speaking of today, and relocate them. Some of them, they could get permits to park in some of the streets. Some of them were moved to the parking structure. We do have ample spaces in the parking structure for all those that did have previous permits elsewhere. It was a due diligence on the part of the Parking Enforcement Division. They reached out to those permit holders to see where's your final destination, where are you originating from. We may not get you as convenient a parking as this parking lot, but try to get you as close to where your end destination is. So that worked out well. And to Doris's comment, she is correct. We anticipated that the property would be sold in January. And so January 1, we relocated everybody. And then when we saw that that didn't happen, we let all the permit holders know that they could move back. So some of them actually have a permit that allows them to park in 2 different locations, whatever is most convenient for them. But with the sale of this property, then we'll relocate them back out of this parking lot.
So to clarify that particular issue that was raised, who does own this property and what's the proposed sale?
The city currently owns the property, and I'll have to defer to the applicant, Todd, to see whether or not he can share some of his business plan and when he anticipates actually purchasing it.
Yes, thank you. That might be very helpful because I understand, at least initially, that all of the property within this proposed TIF was owned by the same entity. Now, that may be true, just a different LLC, but I understood that it was the same entity that owned property Meld in the Garage.
So that's correct.
You got to come up to the mic.
Sure.
Once you're up, could you identify yourself, please?
Yep, my name's Todd Gagney.
So let's take the first one. So the entity is, so Matt Ellman and I are the two co-owners in those. And so we do have multiple LLCs that represent Property Meld, the garage, as well as the TMA building. And so we did create another one for an opportunity zone purchase. So we're selling one of our properties in the downtown corridor and rolling that money back over to purchase this land. So it's not 11 Main that's going to purchase it. We had talked with Joel and the city from a legal standpoint to make sure that would work.
The property on the west side of the proposed TIF is in the National Historic Register. Does that create any issues with the development?
So far, it has not, as far as we know. We've been working with the architect. We've talked with the city as well. And so as far as we know, there are no issues with that.
Todd, while you're up, the question over the purchase agreement, has that been revised then between the new entity and the city? Is it still?
So ultimately, it's dependent on this TIF, right? So I think we were hoping to get the TIF done before purchase. So that's the process we've been going through.
Okay, so the question of transfer of ownership is still undefined yet.
It is. I mean, I think Joel's been saying as soon as we resolve the TIF, then we can finalize the purchase agreement.
Okay. Thank you. Haven, anything else? I was kind of jumping in.
I guess for a couple of reasons, I had some real issues with this application for a TIF. Why, I guess? Why would this property be appropriate for a TIF? I don't understand that from the discussion we've had, and so I'm opposed to the application.
So from my perspective, I guess I think it's a fair question. I think there's kind of two elements to our plan that basically we thought a TIF would be appropriate. One is the green space. So instead of trying to maximize the footprint of this for all commercial gain, I think we have a good chunk of that that's open to the public throughout the day. So that was certainly one of them. The second piece to it is underground parking. There's a fair amount of incremental cost to do that. We could put the responsibility back on the city if we wanted to. I think we felt like if we can take responsibility and put that in our design, that would be better. It'd be better for the people that are living there, and I think it would facilitate a better kind of work-life balance. So those are the two elements that precipitated the TIF application.
Thank you, Mr. Gagnon. Other comment? Okay, Vince?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. I mean, because Doris brought up some interesting points too, and I know we, as Vicki mentioned, we do have some city council members in our audience today. So yes, there was an Elevate plan to have a different business located in there, and now it looks like it's going to be a brewery. But some of the concerns I have on that is that how many full-time jobs are anticipated? And in addition to that, what are we charging for the apartments or the condos or whatever is going to end up it being?
So in phase one, the apartments, I think there's two bedroom and one bedroom. The 2 bedrooms are around $2,000, and I think the 1 bedroom is just under that, like $1,900, $1,800.
And the jobs?
I think, Mike, you had some of this in here. I can't remember exactly what we proposed.
According to the application, it'd be 4 full-time jobs and 8 part-time jobs.
In phase one.
So full-time jobs for each $10,000 in principal value, does that equate? That doesn't come to the right amount for me, or am I miscalculating here?
No, you're not.
Okay. All right, thank you, Chair.
Eric Heikes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Todd says work, live. I say live, work. Kind of fun there. Prioritization, I guess, maybe. I did have a question, sure, a lot of curiosity, and it may not be critically linked to this TIF, but Is there conveyance past TIF? Does this need a conditional use or a plan development as well, or has that already been accomplished? Is there additional planning that needs to accomplish? Just, and you don't have to answer the question. I'm just curious if it be out there. Thanks.
Mr. Chair.
I don't know. Vicky? Sure.
Based on the uses identified by Todd, the on-sale would require a conditional use. The balance of the project would require just the building permit part of it.
That answers my question. Thank you.
And so I wouldn't mind addressing some of the questions around, some changes in tenants. Over the past 10 years, I've really been trying to build out economic development around software startups. So Property Meld was one that I started working with probably 7 or 8 years ago. They were a small company, maybe 2 or 3 people on the incubator. Today they're 70, 72 employees. We've built them a building. They've built some good jobs here in this local area. Software in general is one of these ones where we should be able to do it anywhere, right? And Rapid City should be a good one. We're not manufacturing something. We're not shipping something. We have a fair amount of talent through the School of Mines. And I have a whole background in software. That's what my entire career has been. So a lot of what I've been doing is how do we mentor and grow these types of opportunities and provide living wages to our community? And so a lot of what I've been doing over the last couple of years is partnering with Elevate to figure out how do we build programs to go do that. And so Wildfire Labs, which has been mentioned, is my company, which is basically incubating young entrepreneurs that want to build businesses in Rapid City. So today, we probably have 22 people in our program. 70% of those are from out of state. So they're coming to Rapid City for our program, and some percentage of them are staying here to build. So we're kind of loving on them. We're giving them a great experience. We give them some free housing for 6 months. We give them mentorship, and then we try to retain them in our community so that they hope that they grow and they become the next Property Meld. So between Property Meld and this Wildfire Labs, these are the 2 programs that we're really trying to build. And really, this is the genesis of this whole idea, as many people have said, is how do we create more jobs in this innovation district between 5th Street and School of Mines? That's the whole principle. And so when we first started this, Property Meld was hot to trot. They were growing very quickly, and they expected to outgrow their building by the time this project was ready. Some things in their world has not materialized the way they expected. So growth has been slower, and they've gotten more back to a plan of maybe not high growth, but maybe more towards profitability. And so that's partly the economy. That's partly kind of what some of their leadership wanted to do. So it's our intention that in this phase 2, they're going to need space. That's what they're telling us today. We're also hoping that a number of these Wildfire Labs companies that have graduated our program that are now in Elevate, once they leave Elevate, they're looking for a space in the downtown corridor, and we'd like to put them in there, whether it's in their apartments or whether it's in the office space. So this is the longer term vision of what we're trying to go do. I don't take a salary for any of this. I've been just working and volunteering to get this done and up and running. My goal is to leave Rapid in a better spot and to create more living wage jobs. And so it's not happening exactly the way we want, full stop. But I do think there's a lot of the elements here, and this proposal and this development is a good portion of that.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Haven.
I think it's a great idea. There's great companies there, and they've done some good work. It still doesn't change my opinion as to why a TIF would be necessary to complete this project.
Okay. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to talk about the grant and how that actually goes forward, so we know how just how does it work?
So it would go towards facilitating the construction of the project. So everything outside of that initial land purchase, the grant would go towards to putting this development together. So the city would still track that, even though it's not your typical capital cost of X amount of infrastructure in place. We'll still monitor the construction loan process by getting copies of the bank draws, just the standard draws they would give during the construction phase, just to monitor in line of this is a, you know, a $12.7 million project, that the components to this are still lining up with that. But as far as the grant portion, it's not specifically tied to anything like infrastructure would, so it can be used towards any part of the project outside of the initial land purchase.
So the grant would be that they would go to the city and borrow the money from the city?
That's the
Give the
proposal.
money?
Yep, so there's one or two ways. It's, the grant still is it's not like free money. There's still a repayment for this. There still would have to be a TIF loan in place. So just like any other capital infrastructure type request, there would still have to be either a bank funding, and if the city was interested, the city can administer that TIF loan. And I believe that the applicant and the city would be interested if this was to move forward to administer the TIF loan for this, meaning the city would take an assignment of that increment income, those income that comes in throughout the year to repay down this note.
So in effect, the city is the banker?
Correct.
Okay, that's why it's called a grant.
Yeah, it's not, it's meaning it's not tied to anything specific, but there is still, it needs to be repaid.
Yeah, okay, that answers my question, thank you.
I'm going to jump in on that because the grant part of this is the struggle for me. In our adopted TIF guidelines, what we have is a whole list of costs that are allowable under TIFs, and then we have sort of a catch-all for those costs which the governing body deem appropriate for the development. And what we don't have in our TIF guidelines is any sort of rubric to evaluate what size of grant for what size of project, what kind of project. It's just what the governing body deems appropriate. So we're left with a large amount of discretion that, you know, each planning commissioner and then eventually each city council member has to exercise. And that makes it very hard for us to decide how this project, I mean, all things equal, I want this project to happen. This is absolutely the kind of development I want to see downtown, 100%. But there are other developers that have previously built the things of this nature without TIFs, and there will be. And where do we draw that line between this needs a TIF, but not this? And I don't feel like we have those tools. So unfortunately, this is one that I'm probably going to vote against at this point. Haven?
Add to that, I was concerned too about the precedent setting here. How do we differentiate this project from any other developer that comes forward wanting to do something in this general area? And, you know, you gave a TIF then, why don't we get a TIF for a different project?
Mr. Ainsley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what the council has attempted to do through the TIF guidelines is to align that more closely with the state statute, which does offer a tremendous amount of discretion to the governing body as well as to the Planning and Zoning Commission. What the state statute envisions is that in each community, those goals are going to be different. The state did not want to set down uniform guidance for every single community, knowing that there's going to be different goals within that. So I think it's going to be up to the Planning Commission and ultimately the council to look at it and say, is this TIF necessary to bring forth the development that the community wants to see? And you're right, that's going to be a matter of discretion. I don't think it's an exact science, so you're able to come up with an exact formula. What Mike has provided, though, is what the ROI is with the TIF and without the TIF. And on this particular development, without the TIF, there is no ROI, so the project cannot proceed as envisioned. So that becomes the point of of the policy choice that's being recommended by this commission and then ultimately to the city council is this project valuable enough to make that investment? Because without the TIF, the investment won't occur. Then ultimately it's a point of discretion to say, is that worthy of that sort of investment?
I'm just going to hop in. Mr. Ainsley, maybe you might want to respond to this, but what we were given as a pro forma is literally just an expected net income. We don't see the revenues and costs anticipated, just the anticipated end result. So it's hard to evaluate that without having any other details. And then secondly, unfortunately, when we're talking real estate development, different sized buildings cost different amounts. You know, when we're still in the planning stages, it's hard to just, for me to fixate on this project has to be this size and that, you know, will generate this rent and cost this much, and that's how it has to be. There's changes that can be made to change that yearly net income during the planning stages. So it comes down to, again, the discretion even on that. You know, it's hard for me to say this definitely will or won't happen.
Without a doubt, there has been additional information provided. This is a summation of that. The summation is an accurate reflection of what we've been provided. And so with that, to build the project as shown or as, you know, presented, in order for that to be a positive ROI, a TIF would be necessary. But you're right, if there's a different scale structure, you know, different tenants, if rent structures would be higher, whatever that happens to be, that would be different. It's ultimately a matter of discretion again, or, you know, forecasting to see would that different mix necessarily come about, and if that different mix would come about, how long would it necessarily take to find a developer that would be willing to make that investment under those assumptions, which that's ultimately something I don't think anyone can say, you know, whether that's 6 months from now or 6 years from now or ever.
That's true. Thank you. Mike Kwasny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there's been some great comments by Eric. You had a lot of great input there. I think you summed it up really well, in my opinion. Haven, you added some really good stuff as well. I struggle as when we went to TIF training, we had this about a week ago, and I just struggle with how we fit this in. And it was a question that came up, I think, during the training, is some of it's going to come to our discretion, and it makes it really hard to sit here and say, what precedent do we set by giving this TIF? It's a struggle. It becomes emotional instead of the facts. And normally with a TIF, you have certain criteria that you're meeting, whether it's blight or whether it's, there's reasons why it has. Now, this is a great looking project, and I think it would look great downtown. I just don't know if a TIF is the proper avenue to go through. And that's what I am struggling with as well. Like I said, there are some great comments that have been made, and I echo those. I don't know where we go with this. It's a struggle to accept this as a TIF.
Eric Hikas?
These dialogues are always enjoyable because we all have different perspectives. I really appreciate Mike's comments about blight. I've seen tax increment finance used in different ways in different municipalities, one of which being Billings, Montana. And the term blight had the impression of kind of like dilapidated neighborhoods and, you know, peeling paint and that sort of thing. And I learned a different perspective on blight, and it's really comes down to underutilization of space. And this is becoming prime downtown. This is becoming prime downtown real estate, and in its current form, in my opinion, it may be a bold one, But surface parking is definitely not its highest and best use at this time. I think that the use of a TIF is actually proper, in my perspective, for this facility for those reasons. And it's a bit creative, but having a bit of bandwidth, I would support it. I think I might be the minority report here, but I'm going to continue to pound the drum that this kind of funding can be used in progressive ways and not just the typical we've seen here in this community. So thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We don't use grants that often, and the only other one we've done is for Black Hills Corporation. And we did that because we saw the potential of all the people that would come to live here, and this would be their home base. Excuse me. And so I think the whole concept of that was foreign to everybody. This is the second one that we're looking at, and to me, it's like, here's this property in Rapid City, and if we're trying to do infill development that's going to benefit our community, we have to look at some other ideas. And if the city decided to sell this parking lot to XYZ Corporation, and they said, I'm just going to put up a building, and you don't have the follow-up of who's going in that building. And I think hopefully with Property Mill there, and that they're working for this, and you know, they're trying to make something better that's taking the technology that we get from the mines and work with that, and have a different kind of building there that's not just a building. It's going to house people that have ideas, and that's what I see. And I'm assuming that's why the city has stepped forward and said this is a good project, because it's not the same as just a retail business. And I mean, we could do that, but is that the proper thing to do? And I guess we don't hear all those discussions. The Planning Commission has not heard all the things that really went into this reason why we want to do a grant. And I think we have to say, if that's what the citizens of Rapid City want, they want to make this more of a technology corridor, or work together with the mines, I think that's the right thing to do. And I appreciate the fact that you don't have that parking lot, but most people and citizens of Rapid City don't even know it's a parking lot. I mean, it's just a dirt piece, and that's dirt, but it's just a piece of property that's just sitting there unutilized. And if we're going to sell that parking lot, I would like to sell it to something that's going to benefit the city long run, not just a building that could be vacant for some reason that didn't work out, So I'm supportive of the idea. I think the reason that we have to do a grant is because there's so much cost and all the things that are going to go forward. I'm assuming the person that's going to buy or the entity that's going to buy the property won't be able to get a loan from the bank because there's so many large things out there, and it's not easier, and that's not use the right thing, but it's a benefit to them to use the city as the banker, because we're willing to step forward, and a bank maybe wants some real down payment or some source of how you're going to pay this back. I don't know, but I'm not a banker. So overall, I'm supportive of the idea. I don't know, how people feel about this, but I like the idea of how it's going to look, and I'd like to see that end of town, that's sort of the east of the 5th Street, work and start to grow, and I think this is something that would help that. So that's my comment.
Thanks, Karen. Pat Roseland?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to share that, I don't know all the details, and I'd like to talk with Director Ainsley the next couple of days, just to visit with him about the financial part of this. But getting to know Todd Gagney over the last couple of years, he's a brilliant man. He's bringing in brilliant people, young people to Rapid City to hopefully expand their ideas of their software knowledge and technology with his backing and his mentorship to grow. And his goal is to keep most of those people in Rapid City to grow their businesses. And that to me is where we, you know, is what Rapid City needs. We don't have factories that do this and make furniture and cars. We can't. That's not us. But we can become a tech city with the help of Todd Gagney and his ideas. Obviously, I just feel like that, you know, the apartments up there and he has other areas in town that he has his young we say classes stay for free for 6 months, and he's just given the ability from people, young people with knowledge and intelligence that we don't have in South Dakota, to come from all over the United States and I think the world. You got out probably national also young people here, and I really appreciate that. You know, Todd's sticking his neck out too, and he's not getting paid for all this, but he has an idea and knowledge and fortitude to go ahead with this project, and hopefully in 5-10 years, Rapid City will be a different person, a different city, just because of his input to what Rapid City can be and what he can bring to Rapid City. So I'm in favor of this, and it will come to City Council, but I want to get more knowledge from Director Ainsley and how all this stuff works. So thank you for giving me a chance to speak, and hopefully I'll be a little more intelligent speaking at Council next week, okay? Thank you very much.
Mike Kwasny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, Pat, you bring up a good point. How are these tied, these apartments? It just feels like there's apartments being placed downtown. How are these tied to the concepts that are going in, developing a different line of business in Rapid City, east of 5th Street, to School of Mines, to the students that we want to retain, to the people that we want into this community? How do these apartments tie into that would make it where this would make sense to make it a TIF? I guess that would be a question I'd have to...
Probably for Todd.
Probably from Todd.
Mr. Gagney?
So maybe I don't know on the TIF side necessarily. I guess what I would broadly say is if you talk to some young people, specifically we talked to a bunch of folks at Property Meld. So I mean their average age is probably in their 20s for the most part. There's a number of people that wanted to, work downtown, be able to walk to their business, employment, and it's pretty difficult. I mean, I think if you talk to some of these folks, they've struggled to kind of piece all that together. So I think that's fundamentally what we're trying to do is say, if you are working in the downtown corridor, maybe you do work for Property Meld. If you want one of these apartments, your salary justifies doing that. I think the average salary for a Property Meld employee is in the low 70s, $70,000. So these are good living wage jobs, and having apartments that allow them to work, live, and play downtown is really what we're trying to do. I graduated from School of Mines, both my wife and I did, and we left. There were no jobs. And I think our community really hasn't done a lot for young people. How do we retain them? There's a lot of people that leave and then come back, like myself, and we raised our family here. But what can we do to really build a culture that really is inviting and wants to support young people in their careers in the early years? And so I think that's a lot of what we've been trying to do, is listen to these people that are coming from out of state, who have come from Tulsa, who have come from Salt Lake, who have come from LA. These are folks that have some expectation that we have some of these amenities. And so our goal is to try to start to build some of that in a way that speaks to them, where they can work downtown, they can walk, maybe they don't even need a car. And so that's the goal with these apartments. How it ties into the TIF, I guess my fundamental question is you need green space, right? You want places where they can go have their lunch. They can, go spend some time with somebody out in the sun and sit. They can have an ice cream. Those are the types of things where I think in a lot of the downtowns that you look across the United States that have good open spaces, that's part of what we're trying to do, is create that open space where we can do a concert. If somebody wants to do a play downtown, you can do that. And so I think, Main Street Square is really geared around families. I think what we're trying to do is create more spaces that are unique for other types of demographics in our city.
Well, I think the design and the thought process there, it looks great. It would fit well into the downtown and what's going on. we are putting apartments downtown, and whether it's the Fifth Street project that's going up right now with the hotel and the apartments that are there, to this, to further apartments that were already placed downtown. I guess at some point, we also have to think, and I'll go back to the parking issue, is that we keep building these, and I don't know if we're addressing the parking. If you go to bigger communities, and parking is always a problem when you develop, and I don't know if we're addressing that as we go forward also. I like what you've got, the concept. It's just a struggle. I'm kind of on the fence here on this.
Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot to digest on this one, and I'm kind of with Mike. I'm on the fence. I had to struggle with this one quite a bit. When I was growing up here, same story. There's nothing to stay for. Like, why would I stay here? Opportunities are limited, blah, blah, blah. I'll be honest, I'm not happy about TIF funds being allocated to any kind of pub or, bar drinking establishment, just for the record. But I think the overall benefit to the community is, that was the struggle with us, is, does this cross the bar to, justify a TIF structure? So I am in support of this. I like to see, development downtown, infill, and I think it's a good design. I just hope that, the design stays a bit organic, a bit, in tune with our community, and I hope everybody involved in this is good stewards to the downtown area. But yeah, this is a tough one for us up here, but I will support this one.
Vince?
Thank you, Chair. Let me try to clear up a couple of things. As far as the Stock Growers building, is there some space already, a parking space already designated for that building?
Vicki?
No, some of them purchase permits to park in this parking lot.
Okay, and as you pointed out earlier, that they can actually go to the other parking.
The parking structure.
Parking structure, thank you. Okay, the other thing, I like the plan. I like the green space, obviously. Since I've been on this commission, I've been asking for more and more and more of this. So it's always good to see it come forward like this. So I can appreciate the effort that you're making. And that alone, could persuade anyone that this is the right place, but is it the right time is a bigger question, because of the amount of investment and the rate on return of investment rather is not a guarantee, but it's a risk. On the other hand, when you talk about maintaining, I don't think there's a guarantee, and since you are a graduate of the school, I don't think there's a guarantee that this is going to keep School of Mines students here in that building, because if they're, like, for example, one of the School of Mines graduates that I know is in Wyoming because they're working in the coal industry. Well, they can't do it here. They got to be there. So there are a lot of the jobs that are available for the School of Mines graduates, but I don't know how that's going to keep it here. So maybe you can kind of help me visualize that better. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think my primary interest is on the software side. So we have a decent School of Mines computer science department. If you survey those kids, and I've been volunteering there for the last 7 or 8 years, probably 30 to 40% of them would say, I would like to stay in Rapid City or the region. I would like to. And so, do we have enough jobs to support that? We do not. And so a lot of them were like my wife and I. My wife graduated from School of Mines with a computer science degree. There were no jobs. She went to Microsoft. I think you're dead on. I think there's lots of domains that we do not have jobs for, but the specific area that I've been focused on is computer science. And so instead of having them go to Microsoft and to Amazon and to Google, if they want to stay in the region, why not give them opportunities here to stay? And so we've been, with Property Meld, we've built a pretty good pipeline where we basically have students that do some special projects, then they do a summer internship, and then we take the best of those and we hire them. And so, that's a pipeline that we'd love to see with every one of these software companies. If you're growing and you need development resources, give them opportunities to get stuff on their resume. In the worst case scenario, they got some real world experience here and then they left. But if they want to stay, they have the ability to do it. And so I think it's 30 to 40% of those kids that graduate would like to stay in the region.
So, and again, based on your experience and your knowledge of the students that are there, so walking to and from this location to the school is a common event or a common occurrence. It's every day. So it sure beats having to drive or as far as transportation to and from these locations. It's a benefit.
Yeah, I guess when I'm, maybe, can you clarify your question a little bit more?
Yeah, because you're saying that, these are School of Mines students that will be living there in the apartments. No, okay.
No, this is mostly graduation, right?
For
so
graduation.
the idea would be give them opportunities to do internships and that sort of stuff before they graduate. And if there's, so I'll give you a great example. So
Good.
one of the first companies that we did, we basically partnered with the School of Mines, and they have something called a senior design. So there's a team that they put together. In this case, there were 4 people that basically were working on that team. And the graduation, they said, I would like to stay here and I would like to work on your project. And so once they graduated, that company hired them. 2 of them went off and did their own thing. 2 of them stayed in the region and ended up working for the company, and they're drawing $75,000 salaries. That's what I'd like to see, right? More of that. So there's an opportunity for you to work and get something on your resume, and if you decide you want to stay in the region, you have opportunity to do that. And so that's the partnership that we've been working on with the School of Mines, and our hope is that, you know, some percentage of them decide to stick around and then get those apartments because they're making $75,000.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Karen? Oh, oops. I need you to request again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to throw one other thought into this project. My granddaughter graduated from college in Colorado, University of Colorado, and her degree is animation, and she just loves to draw. She loves to do but she didn't want to go to California to join Walt Disney or something like that. She wanted to stay someplace local, and she ended up getting hired by a company in Utah, but she works from home, and she's got this huge bank of computers that she has to deal with, and she does all her work there, but she gets paid from this company in Utah. And that's something that I see young people starting to do. Young people are into computers, and I just look at her and go, I don't have a clue what you're doing, but you know, but it's amazing. And so I think this is an opportunity for our community to have some of those people doing those work, whether they're at home doing it or they're in the apartment that you have there, but they're still doing things that generations from now will start to do. And I think I just don't want to be stuck into things that we've done years and years ago. I just think we need to look forward to doing something different. And if this is the way to do it, I think it's worth a chance to have us go forward and do it. So that's why I support this.
Thanks, Karen. Vicki, did you have a
Yeah, I did. So all the talk today about property meld is so exciting. And I think that is what really led the council to get behind selling the property to Todd without putting it out for an RFP, is that we were going to stand up this incubator business, and that leans into the innovation district, which does make it somewhat unique and separate from other projects in our downtown. I don't know if this question is for Mike or Todd. Just in looking at the application and the project plan, I didn't see any commitment that we've had a lot of discussion today about the benefit of property meld, how this is going to bring more opportunity to our young. I didn't see any commitment that this would be used for anything other than professional businesses. Is that something that we might help the Planning Commission if they knew that these office spaces or a percentage of them was going to be held in reserve for that incubator business?
I'm just going to piggyback on that because that was sort of my question. To me, the application is for a real estate development with undetermined tenants. To Vicki's point, is there any agreement on what tenants will definitely be in there? And then also on what the design will ultimately be. Because we've seen this before where renderings are not necessarily what gets built, and that's life, you know, but when there's a public subsidy being provided, sometimes the governing body may want to see more of an agreement on what's going to be built.
And to that point, Mr. Chair, similar to when we do an affordable housing TIF, we get very specific on the data involved in ensuring that that TIF is being used appropriately.
Yeah, so uses and that, Mr. Gagny.
So Mike and I had this conversation just a day ago. If I controlled the world, this would be easy, right? I mean, I think, you know, the economic climate, we've seen a lot of changes just in stock market and sentiment that makes investment decisions that really impact stuff. And so I'm chairman of the board. I've made an investment in Property Meld. I mentor them every Thursday. I'm heavily involved. And so, but, you know, for them to make a commitment to me that says they're, you know, going to sign something that they're going to be in a building for me, I don't think they're going to do it, right? I think they're going to say, when I need it, the growth plans that I have says I'm going to need it. But if there's a huge recession and something happens to my business, I don't want to be committed to it. So that's the reality. I think the same thing with a lot of these small companies that we're incubating and growing. I think what you're seeing is they're graduating from our program, they're going and taking space in Elevate, and they're there for either a year or two, and then they're basically being kicked out to go get market value and stand on your own 2 feet. That's what you want. And so we're starting to see that. We're starting to see people graduate from our program, go and take space, and then they're going to need it. If we're not competitive, or if if they find cheaper space that they want to go do, that's up to them to do. So it's my inclination, and I want to see that happen. And we're going to try to do everything we possibly can, because that's the whole reason I'm doing this project, right? Like, that is the impetus. I want to see technology jobs in the corridor, and I want more. I have kids. I have kids in college. And if we don't provide them some jobs, like, they're not coming back, right? They're just not. And so, my wife and I were just lucky that we were able to work remotely and raise our family here. And so I would love to make commitments, but these companies are not large enough where they're going to sign on the dotted line to make a commitment to me.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you. Mike Kwasny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What comes to mind is a movie, Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come. I guess that's where I'm trying to picture how this fits into that. Because we are asked to put an emotion to this, it feels like. And so I don't know if I see the whole dream yet. I still see the corn stalks. I'm struggling a little bit with the does this fit into making that happen? I sure would like to think so. It's a good-looking project. Like I said, it's just, is it if it was part of a bigger picture, and yeah, the picture's been drawn. We've tried to develop that. I don't know if it's sitting there yet. Because part of it is we have a new jail that's going in right across the street from this, so we're not melding it all together yet. I'm trying to see it. I like the grass downtown. I like that you have parking for this. I still think we don't have parking for the whole downtown community. I'm hearing that we have plenty of parking in what we have, but I'm struggling to really. I've tried to get some of that parking. I'm really struggling with this one.
I don't blame you, Mike. So, Haven.
Maybe just a comment. I really appreciate the project. I think it looks good, and the reasons you gave, your future projections. That's just great, keeping the kids in town. But I get back to the question of, is it a viable project on its own? apparently you're saying that it isn't. And then the next question is really a TIF the way to go, or is there another source of from either the city or Elevate where they can support this project financially without establishing the TIF?
Daniel?
Mr. Chair, I think that too is a question that cities have struggled with across the state for a long time. Unfortunately, in South Dakota, there's not a lot of economic development tools. Often we end up hearing from the state that every city treats every project with just a TIF, and the reality is that's kind of what happens because that's our only real tool. TIFs are the only way that we can provide some sort of incentive or some sort of gap to get that to occur. In other states, they have different means. You know, they can do sales tax financing, all sorts of different things like that. In South Dakota, it's truly a TIF. And so this is a way that we can assist in having an amenity to build the ecosystem that can hopefully help generate more younger professionals downtown without actually using a direct investment from the taxpayer. And so the only other thing we could do would literally be writing money out of the general fund that we would otherwise use for road maintenance or police officers or something like that, write that for a project, which the city has not done that for decades, and I don't see the city really doing that. So truly the only way to do that, to incentivize this sort of private investment, to get them to catalyze and build something is through a TIF, at least in this state.
Can I add some comments on that? I
Sure,
guess
Todd.
going back to the earlier comment about, forest of the trees, or, can we see the larger vision? I think we've been talking about this for probably 10 years about building an innovation corridor, right? And so that is the larger vision. And it's going to take a number of these infill projects and people to commit dollars to make this happen. So, we met with Darren Haar just the other day talking about what are the other projects that we're doing, what do we need to do, talking to the county. There's other projects that we want to do, and this is just one component of it. So both Elevate and the city have spent a ton of time figuring out what an innovation district really is and what that looks like. And to me, this fits really well with it. It's at the top of the innovation district. It's an element that we can really make that work. The second comment I'd like to make is, we can make this commercially viable, but it's going to take some of the elements out of this that we like, right? Whether it's the parking that's underground, that's expensive, or it's some of the green space. We have to maximize more of that square area as an investor, right? And so that's the trade-offs we have to make. And so I'm not saying that I'm just saying as it stands today, if we don't do this and we want to keep the exact same design, it's not a commercially viable project for us. We have to do something different. And I think, talking with the city about, taking some responsibility for parking, I think is important. So we're not just putting all of that on the city to go figure out, but legally we could if we wanted to do that. Or the same thing with green space. Do we want to put more buildings and have a higher density in that space and have more tenants that make this commercially viable? We can do that. I just don't think that's the right thing for the long term.
Thank you. Eric Hikas?
It's a great discussion. Well, for the sake of time, it's getting on to 8:45. I'm going to make a motion. We'll see what the votes come in at. But I'll move that the proposed district meets the intent of South Dakota codified law and the tax increment finance policy, and that we recommend approval of the resolution to create a tax increment finance district grant to the city council. And that.
Mr. Chair, could we
Vicky?
take those motions separately? If the district doesn't get approved, then the project plan doesn't go forward.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to the creation of the district first as my motion. Thank you, Vicki.
Does that work for you, Mike? Okay, so Eric made the motion to create the district as stated, and Mike Gallagher seconded that motion. Discussion on the motion. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the motion because I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think we need to move this forward, at least get the district approved. I look at the idea of this corridor that we're trying to put together. And I looked at some of the other TIFs that we've done over the years. And every TIF that we do, we talk to ourselves and say, is this viable? Is this a good idea? And the public, a lot of times the public goes, what are you guys doing? You know, this is crazy. And you're giving them the opportunity to use their dollars, tax dollars that come in to pay off some of their loan. And some of them have been really good. Some of them, in my opinion, probably haven't, but yet we do it. And it's a chance when we decide this is a good thing, because the public's going to see it. This one is also a chance, but to me it's something that is more viable. It's more forward thinking, I guess. And the other thought is, all the TIFs that we started with, we said we want things downtown. We want to use the TIFs for downtown. And originally, TIFs were created to revitalize downtowns and use it for that. All our TIFs, it seems like almost every one of them are outside of the boundaries, or we have to add more square footage to our city. And this is something that is for us, for people downtown. And I think this is a good TIF that's going to help the community in the long run. So,
Mike Kwasny? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe that this would go to Vicki. The question I have, this motion goes forward or it doesn't go forward, the process then it goes to City Council.
Vicki?
Mr. Chair, if we could have Kinsley explain the requirement that regarding the district versus the resolution.
There you go, Kinsley.
Thank you. So for the creation of the district to go to City Council, there needs to be a majority of the entire Planning Commission voting in favor of it. And if there is not a majority voting in favor, then it wouldn't go to City Council. There's no right of appeal. So in terms of the vote, the question is, are there going to be 5 members today voting in favor of the creation of the district?
No,
Okay,
sorry.
so with that said, if we vote for this, then it goes to City Council where they consider this. If we don't vote for it, it dies here, then it's done. Is that what I'm hearing?
Kinsley? Oh, sorry. Can't see your mic.
Correct. Yep.
Can I ask one more thing on the majority of the entire planning commission? Is that, if we have 10 members, is that 6, even though there aren't 10 here, or how's the calculation of that?
You have 9 members, so you need 5, and you have 8 here today. Majority would still be 5.
Okay.
But I do believe it's you go to the total count of the appointed planning commission, not just who's present today.
Okay, thank you. Motion on the floor is to approve the creation of recommend approval of the resolution to create the district right now. I'm going to make one last personal comment. The root of this for me was kind of what Mr. Gagne alluded to in his last comment, that this could be a different project and go forward. And unfortunately, I don't believe the council has provided the guidance on how we are to evaluate what the benefits of a project are in order to decide, should we provide a subsidy for this project or should we not? And that's the sole reason for my vote against this, because the benefits of the project I am not in argument with. Any other comments on the motion to approve? Mike Kwasny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the facts that you stated right there, Eric, I struggle with that part. But to get it to City Council and to have them have a full discussion, I'm probably going to vote for it, only to bring it forward so that they can have a further discussion. I think that they should recognize the fact that this is something that we need better understanding going forward, but we are for innovation. We want that. It's not what the planning commissioner is against. We, as planning commissioners, we want to see innovation. We want to see this city grow. Eric, he brought up some great thoughts on other communities and how they've developed some things, and they stuck their neck out maybe a little bit. So I guess if this does go to the city council, this gives them some thought process, and it shows that we vetted this as best we could.
All right. Again, a motion on the floor is to approve recommending the approval of the resolution to create the district. If there's no other comments, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Just me? Oh, Haven and myself and Vince. All right. So that's 5-3, so the motion carries to create the district. I'm sorry to discount you guys. That leaves us with discussion or a motion on the proposed project plan. Mike Gallagher?
I'll make the motion. The planning commission finds that the proposed plan meets the intent of the South Dakota and city's tax increment financing policy, and recommends the commission recommend approval of the resolution to adopt a project plan to the city council stipulations.
Okay. Mike Gallagher made that motion. Karen seconded the motion. Discussion on the motion. Mike Quasney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm assuming that if this is voted no, then it goes the same way. It basically kills the TIF? No?
No, the creation of the district was approved, so this will move forward. You can deny the project plan, but approve the resolution to create the district, and it'll still move forward.
So then it'll go to city council to decide whether this is a good plan.
Does
Yes.
the project plan get appealed, or does it automatically go even if we don't recommend approval?
Yep, it's automatic now with the approval of the district.
Okay.
Okay.
Kinsley, maybe a better explanation for it.
So if you look at the TIF policy, the planning commission first would have to approve the project plan in order for the project plan itself to go to city council. So it is something that the planning commission does have to, or is the gatekeeper on. So the district certainly can be created by city council if city council decides to vote in favor of that, but the project plan itself needs to get through planning commission first.
Okay. Haven.
Thank you. So to carry on with that, then, I would assume then if the plan isn't approved today, that's something that they could come forward at a future meeting with the same or a different project plan for our consideration.
Okay, well, when this TIF policy was stood up, it also included the elimination of the TIF committee. I think the intent was that while it's clear if the planning commission doesn't approve the district boundary, then the plan itself becomes moot. But the intent was that planning commission is always just a recommending body on the project plan, and that those go forward to council. I think Daniel and I were kind of looking at each other a little bit ago about maybe we need to clean up the language there. If this were to be denied today, Kinsley, can you help us? Could they come back with an alternate plan?
Kinsley?
Mr. Chair. yes, they could definitely come back with an alternate plan. And this is more, also based upon state law and what state law requires in terms of what planning commission has to do. So, yeah, they could come back with the project plan later on and planning commission could look at it again.
I'm going to pause for just a second. I'd like to have a motion to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock if necessary. Karen made the motion and Vince seconded that motion. All those in favor of extension past 9 o'clock, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Sorry to, Karen, I've got you up next.
Thank you. I think for us as a planning commission, it wasn't the district that was hard. It was us looking at the project plan itself. And I think by us agreeing with the district, I think we really understand the project plan and how it's been presented. And I don't know if there's another way to do it. If we denied it and he had to come back, what would he come back with that's going to be better than this? I just don't see it. So I just think that this is the right thing to do, is to go forward with the project plan.
Okay, Vince?
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to make that clear as well. I had no problems with the project plan. It was the original TID. So I agree with Karen. Thank you.
All right, the motion on the floor is to approve recommend approval of the resolution to adopt a project plan for this tax increment district. Any further discussion on that? Mike Quasney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, Pat, take it to the city council, and I hope you understand where the planning commission is struggling with this. So, okay.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. So I think the opposed is just Haven and I this time. All right. So that closes item number 7. Anything to add today, Vicki? At the end of the agenda?
I think we've had quite enough this morning. Great conversation, guys. I know these aren't easy.
Anything from the planning commission? Okay. Mike Gallagher made the motion to adjourn. Vince seconded it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
What it said.
I take no opposition on that.
Oh, he's talking to the hikers.
Oh.
The other.